February 6, 2020, Joe here at Simple Life Show. I appreciate everybody for joining me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and do all that good social media stuff to keep the rational voices out in front where they belong. So everyone knows what happens with the State of the Union address. It was a big fiasco. Some are calling it a reality show. Some are calling it Jerry Springer. I consider it just another distraction, honestly. It seems like the Democratic Party are always trying to distract away, just as much as the Republicans are. And I'll get to that because I think that really hits at the heart of what's really going on. And I know it's really hard to pay attention sometimes and keep a centered view of the center of the road where we're going down, because there's all kinds of stuff on the left and right for us to be looking at. And they're constantly telling us to look to the left and look to the right and all this kind of stuff, because we can't have a population, we can't have a public and a civilization that is truly informed, that thinks for themselves, that are truly independent in how they believe. I think we have too many people that are far too entrenched on either side. They're hardcore Trump supporters, they're hardcore conservatives, they're hardcore liberals. This is only making everyone blind to everything. We can't really see down the center of the road. We can't make rational decisions if we're not taking both sides into account. It's how we use our minds, and I've used this type of example and this metaphor a lot. It's just like our brains. Some say that our left side of our brain is more creative, our right side is more logical. Doesn't mean that one side is smarter than the other. It just means that we have to use both sides of our brains in a lot of decisions we make. It can't be all logical, because then we would act like robots, right? And some people can say that the GOP and all that stuff, we just act like, robots in how they do their business. And some people say the Democrats are more the creative side, and they're more emotional, and they're more feeling. And I would have to agree with this. I can agree with those that are on the hard right are more robotic in how they go about how they do things, and those on the left are very creative and colorful and stuff like that. Okay, I'm not trying to attribute negative or positive attributes, but that's how it is displayed. In other words, if you consider yourself hard right, doesn't mean that you are that way. Just as much as you're out there protesting and stuff like that with the hard left, doesn't mean that you're that way either, but you could be if you haven't really taken a chance to really look at yourself in the mirror to decide, am I being a little bit too biased, and even to myself. It's not so much the biases that's out there, because everything's bias that we receive from our environment and how we interpret that. It's all biased in one way or the other. But we have to actually make a concerted effort to work past that and actually look at what is the really truth of the matter. Just take, for instance, State of the Union address. I knew that Trump was just going to be talking about the economy. Some can argue, yes, the economy's doing well in some respects, but then some people can argue it's like, well, it's not really. Those numbers there's not that they're fudged. It's just not the complete picture of everything. And I think that's the problem. We're not seeing the complete picture of our own reality. It's like a horse with the blinders on, and it's done that for safety's sake, right? We do this for our own self-preservation, because if we were to open ourselves up to literally everything, it would be like Superman, and Superman can't, he can't take on all of the external type of responses and external type of stimuluses that are out there. I'm kind of getting off the topic, but you understand where I'm going with this. I'm going to keep harping on this because it's very, very important. But Fox News just released in Canberra about 30 minutes ago. Buttigieg soars, Biden slips, Sanders still on top in newest New Hampshire poll. I believe that Sanders is going to take New Hampshire's handily. Of course, Elizabeth Warren is still in it. Buttigieg, we really just don't know. Something might have happened in Iowa. We don't really know where Buttigieg really actually stands. So we have to really see, just as much as we don't really know where Sanders stands, or really Biden for that matter. And that's why a lot of people are making the argument to just skip the Iowa caucus, because it's not a good representation of where these Democrat candidates or Republican candidates, where they actually stand. And I happen to agree with that. I think we should use Nevada or South Carolina or one of these states, or somewhere where it's like where it's more like a purple state. We need to figure out at that point where these candidates actually lie on the actual spectrum. So that is all that this to be said of that. Of course, Nancy Pelosi just recently came out with her news press conference, and we'll get to that. It's a weekly conference that she does, and I figured that she was going to be talking about why she ripped up the papers and stuff like that. And some were saying that she should be asked to stand down or leave her post simply because, her ripping that up was against the law. But, we're just kind of splitting hairs here. It was symbolic. She felt like she needed to do it. She felt like she needed some sort of win, I guess, because she knew that the acquittal was coming, which I obviously did. No big surprise there. So moving on. Actually, you know what? Let me, I'm gonna round back to that. And one of the things I really wanted to kind of to talk about was that C-SPAN had a reaction period for a lot of people to call in, and from Democrat, Republican, Independent alike, where they called in and they gave their viewpoints on what was actually said. And now I watched the whole thing. It wasn't very long, but the majority of it was a lot of Democrats and Independents calling in saying how upset they were about everything. And this is a small smattering of what happened on that show.
For 70-something years. And what I've seen tonight of the Democrat Party, I am changing my mind. I mean, I'll probably still be a Democrat. But far as I'm electing for a goddamn Democrat, never again.
I am a Democrat as well, but no longer will I vote Democrat. I think it's outrageous that they sat there when all these good things are happening to our country and how much we love our country, and they looked like they hated our country. And Nancy Pelosi, the whole time she's sitting up there with a disgusting look on her face, it's outrageous. I will never vote Democrat again, and I'm sick of it, and my whole family feels the same way. My husband, my friends are sitting here, all former Democrats. We all voted for Hillary last time, and therefore never, ever will we ever vote
in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Hi, John.
Good evening. I listened to the State of the Union and the Democratic response. They were both, in my opinion, a little bit of kabuki theater, pandering to the base, but as a libertarian, I was greatly amused by the opening example from the Democrat response where the young man in Michigan was filling potholes because the government wasn't doing it. And the governor was implying that it's the job of the federal government to fix roads. It's not the job of the federal government. And the Democrats are pushing for more of a centralized, top-down administration where it's been proven time and time again, the bigger that an organization gets, the less responsive it is to the needs of the people. We need to get back to the local issues handled by local governments, state issues by state governments, and the federal government making sure that the states treat each other fairly and they deal with the foreign governments.
Thank you, sir.
One point I really wanted to make before I get to this last clip is that I think that the Democrats are making a big error. As I've mentioned before, Van Jones says that the Democrats really are making a mistake because they are forgetting about the demographic that they need the most, which is the black vote and the minority vote, but specifically the black vote. And a lot of people just simply don't realize that a lot of black people are very, very smart. And I think they get a bad rap for some reason. And you might call that racism, you might call that or something else. I've known a lot of black people in my life. I have never once met a black person that I did not respect. And they had to that's the way I've always, let me put it this way. This is how I was raised. I was raised to treat every individual person based on how they treat me and how they present themselves. And I just don't understand why the Democrats are constantly trying to pander to minorities. It's almost like they don't believe that minorities can use their own minds and come up with their own conclusions based on their God-given gifts and talents and their mind, just like everyone else. And this is one of the things that just really irritates me, and it has irritated me as a Democrat, and it irritates me as an independent or a libertarian or a conservative, because I'm all of those, and I'm everything, and it just irritates me as a human being that we have people that are in power and people that are just vying for their next election to constantly pander to people because they think you're dumb. They think that you're dumb. Okay, they think all Trump supporters are hillbilly, racist rednecks that live in West Virginia, obviously, right? But they also believe that minorities are just simply need a handout, or they can't think for themselves and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of humans out there that can't think for themselves, but I don't think it's one minority. I don't think it's just one minority. I don't think it's simply people that live in West Virginia or Kentucky or Tennessee or anything like that, the traditional South. I don't think it's any of those things. I think that we have become blind as a nation to what's really going on in this country and what our so-called rulers are doing to us. And they have been doing to us for a long time. But they keep playing us off each other every single year like a WWE match, and we continue to play along. Now understand that the same types of people that elected Trump are the same types of people that are going to elect Bernie Sanders. There, I said it. It's the truth. And if you really think about it, that's what the Democrats are not looking at. They are looking, those on the Democrat side are just as frustrated with the entire process as Trump supporters or the silent majority was back in 2016. There is another silent majority now that's not so silent anymore. They're in the streets. They're yelling about it. But no one's really listening, are they? Because they seem that like they're insane, right? And in a lot of cases, they do appear completely insane. But I think that we have become insane because of the last 100 years of failed monetary policy. It's not about the president that is in the White House. It is about failed monetary policy and how we view money. That is the crux, and that's the heart of this whole thing. Now, Nancy Pelosi. Now I'm going to play this last clip from C-SPAN because this is from an independent voter, and I think that the Democrats as well as the Republicans forget about these people. They forget about people like me and you who are independents and that can think for ourselves and that have a rational mind. They forget about us because we're not entrenched on either side. And here's that clip because it kind of just breaks it all down.
Your reaction to the speech or to Governor Whitmer's response?
I will say that with a simple rip of a paper, Nancy Pelosi has pretty much sealed the deal of a re-election of Donald Trump. When independent voters see that, watch the rest of the speech, the optics of her being so childish to rip the speech after the ending of the speech, right after the soldier is reunited with his family from Afghanistan. The optics of that are so horrible, so childish. It definitely plays to the base of the TDS, Trump derangement syndrome crowd. But when you have independent voters that listen to the end of that speech, see that whole segment, and her ripping pages, you have lost any independent voter that has been looking, do I go with the person that's there, or do I take a chance on an unknown of the Democratic Party?
So this independent voter actually kind of summarizes what I'm trying to say, what I've been trying to say for a while, and what a lot of people out there are screaming from the hilltops, that independent voters are making up a huge majority here, or huge, not so much majority, but a huge segment. There's a lot of big people that have been splitting off in the Republican Party. There's a lot of people that are splitting off from the Democratic Party and saying, you know what, I'm just going to stay on the center, and I'm just going to see everything for what it's worth. And both sides are going to have to work for my vote. There's no guarantee anymore. People have to work for it. And people like Bernie Sanders, and as much as he's an avowed socialist and has had ties with the Soviet Union and so forth, as bad of optics as that, people are running for the hills, and yes, they will be running towards Bernie Sanders. But the independent voters as well, a good portion segment of them, especially if they were leaning Democrat, they are going to be leaning more GOP right now. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I think the DNC is really trying to weigh the pros and cons of letting a candidate like Sanders go all the way at the top of the ticket, or are they going to rig it in favor of Biden? I mean, we'll just have to wait and see what kind of happens. I think that we can already see that there's going to be more rigging involved. Now, going back to my original argument about how it's not about any one candidate, it's about the monetary system. Nancy Pelosi got up and she did her weekly news conference where she just, kind of rants and raves about stuff. I watched the whole thing. It wasn't really anything interesting, but it was kind of revealing because she wanted to constantly talk about the economy of Obama and how the Trump economy is just an extension upon the Obama economy. Yes, Obama did inherit a huge mess with the bailout, and the bailouts for the banks happened on his watch. We all know that. We all know that caused a lot of problems, and a lot of problems that we're actually seeing right now, but it's all systemic. It's all part of a larger issue. But here she is, a short clip of her talking in Nancy Pelosi style.
About, I'm going to make health care, blah, blah, blah. The fact is, he did not inherit a mess. He inherited a momentum of growth in our economy. And many more statistics are in what I hope you will read, because it was appalling to hear him try to take credit for something that and call what the President Obama did a mess that he inherited, when in fact it was a great advantage to the country that President Obama's policies took us to that very positive place of growth and of job creation and deficit reduction.
So we could sit here and we could discuss the numbers. You can go look up the numbers yourself. It's going to be kind of a wash. There's probably 50% of the stuff that Trump's done that's been positive, and 50% of the stuff that he's done that hasn't been positive. We could say the same thing about Obama. It's going to be like that with every single president. The president doesn't have anything to do really with the budget. Surprise, surprise, that's Congress, okay? Now the president does put forward a budget, but it rarely ever comes out on the other side the same way. So if they want to talk about the budget and the deficit and the spending and all that, that's on Congress. And guess who is in control of Congress right now? Guess, it's the Democrats, right? Now, the Democrats took over in 2018, so just like, similar to Obama, the Republicans only had a few years, didn't get as much done as they probably wanted it to do, but that's simply the way it goes every single time, okay? We know this, and pretty much the same thing happens unless there is a huge event like a 9/11 or, an economic collapse. I would contend that another economic collapse is coming. I think there's a lot of evidence that shows that this new bubble that's forming in the form of stock buybacks and a lot of this really cheap money that's in the supply, that's always been that way, and the runaway inflation that's actually happening right now. Of course, the pundits out there on both sides will try to remind you that that's a good thing. It's a good thing that we have inflation. That's a good thing for the economy. No, it's not. Okay. No, it's not. Now, when you go to the store and you can't even buy anything for $1, how is that a good thing? I mean, every time I go to Walmart or I go to the grocery store or something like that, I'm able to get less and less for the same amount of money. And that is the way it's always been. If we look here, for those that were listening to the State of the Union address, and I think we can just focus on some of the good things that Trump has done, some of the recognition that Trump has given to a lot of people that are willing, that are deserving of that recognition. Those are good things. those things should not be marginalized in any way, shape, or form. But of course, that what she kind of did marginalize when she ripped up the paper, but that's beside the point. The point is all these things are distracting us from what is really going on. There's so much distraction right now because our monetary policies that we are putting forward, especially through the Fed, are completely screwed. We have been sitting at a 0% interest rate for like a really long time. And it's not supposed to be that way. Eventually, those interest rates are going to have to come up, and it's going to cause a cascade effect, and it's going to cause another economic collapse. It's just like any, if you ask any experts, like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But they want to constantly tell you, hey, you should be investing in the stock market. No one's in the stock market right now. No private investors really in the stock markets. It's all private. It's all private exchanges. It's all corporate. Money flowing into the stock market in the form of stock buybacks and all that kind of stuff. We all know that. So if we actually look here at the U.S. deficit, that's one of the things that they were talking about. Here they say each president inherits many of his predecessors' policies. This is true. For example, presidents may suffer from lower revenue. Presidents who raise taxes quickly may become unpopular. This can result in tax cuts rarely disappearing. Some presidents have to deal with catastrophic events, just like 9/11 and the Katrina hurricanes and so forth. Those comes with huge price tags, and we forget that. And I think Obama gets a lot of slack because obviously the bailouts and all that kind of stuff. I really wish we lived in an economy where businesses were allowed to fail. Isn't that the main crux of capitalism? Succeed by your own merits. If you provide if you provide a product or service that is good for the people and it's something that they want, then you will succeed. And that's where the story should end. But we have elected and we have put people and men in power who want to make all the decisions for us and not let a free system work. That is why Rand Paul is such a radical. Everyone hates Rand Paul because he just kind of outed. I'm not even going to say it because I don't even want this video to come down. But Rand Paul, he's getting a lot of slack for what he did. If you don't know, look it up. But the presidents, we focus so much on the presidents and not Congress, right? All the Congress people are trying to get you to focus on the president and not them. They're the ones that actually put these things through, not the president. The president tries to set the motion of where the ship is going, and the Congress are the ones that are actually rowing the oars. They're the ones doing the work. At least they're supposed to be. But now there's gridlock. Nothing's getting through, and now we want to blame the president. Haven't we been through this before? All right, so the deficit, right? So that was one of the things that she was talking about. So who was actually the worst for the deficit? It says here Barack Obama, right? Barack Obama had the largest deficits when Obama took office in 2009. The federal budget deficit was $10.6 trillion. By the time he left office in 2017, the federal budget deficit had nearly doubled to $19.9 trillion, an increase of 86%. Obama had to deal with the Great Recession. We know that. In 2009, Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which was about $700 to $800 billion, right? Do you remember when they were saying we just really came up with a big number? That's what that number was. But of course, they don't really know where most of that money went, right? And of course, it was actually a lot more than that, into the trillions of dollars, and no one really knows where that went. Oh well, right? Oh well. So yeah, we could talk about deficits all day. We could talk about spending. We could talk about revenues. We could talk about debt, all day long. Till we're all blue in the face and we're going to be pointing fingers at each other saying, oh, your president was the worst and he caused all this kind of stuff. Can we stop all that talk? Can we put the blame where the blame is? It's really Congress, right? But it's not only Congress, it's the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve wouldn't happen if Congress didn't pass the unconstitutional law to make the Federal Reserve real. Okay? We also need to look at the unemployment rate. But we always look at the unemployment rate, right? Why is that? Because it's easily manipulated, right? It doesn't give you the full picture of what's going on. We need to look at civilian labor force participation rate. Okay, so here it goes from 1999. It's been steadily decreasing. However, look, in 2015, it actually spiked, right? Now, we could say that, okay, Obama was probably maybe doing something right there at the end of his presidency. Kudos to him. But it's been slowly increasing, right? But we're still at 63.2%. So it's actually the labor participation rate, men 20 years and older in total, have been going down. So less people are working. So what does this mean? 63%. That means that around 36% of the labor force, 20 years or older, are not participating in the workforce. Now, this could be for a variety of reasons. They could be in college, stuff like that. But that is the overall, that is the real picture of who's not working. Around 40% are not working. This only goes back to 1999. Okay, but this gives a better look at what's actually going on here. Another kind of playing off what I was talking about before, the value of the dollar, right? So we have $100 in 1799. Shortly after we won our independence, and it's adjusted for inflation. So $100, right? We can see what's happening here. $100 in 1799 would be around $2,089.22. I want to kind of look at a breakdown of this. Also, what's really important, the buying power of a dollar over time, right? It's been steadily decreasing. So what happened around here? And also, what happened around here? Well, around here is when the Federal Reserve was created, right? 1913 was the year. $124.24. In just a few short years, it lost almost half of its value. It went back up, right? And then the let's just say the 30s gold rush happened for the government when they wanted all of the gold back. The Federal Reserve was created in 1933, and look at what's happened since then. The value of our money and what it can buy has been decimated, completely decimated. We can't buy anything for $1 anymore, let alone $100. Really, you can barely buy anything for $100 now. That is that's what's happening. And now this is a chart that's actually giving the true value every single year. Of course, the two dates that are the most important, I believe, I've already noted them. 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created. We can see that it's just starting to just multiply. 1933, that's it. It's all over with. It just starts growing exponentially. At that point, that is what that has done to our economy, people, and that's what a lot of people, they know, but they just conveniently forget because they want to talk about all these economic numbers. Okay, we are constantly putting a Band-Aid on all this stuff, and they want to constantly, those in their power, they constantly want to point fingers. Republican and Democrat alike, they keep doing it, and we keep believing them, and we keep wanting more change. We're just desperate for the change. And what is the change that we want? We want to go back to a simpler time, right? Where people, where we had a good economy that ran itself, that we didn't have to have smart guys manipulate things every single day to keep the ship afloat. Because here's a good analogy. A perfect running economy would be a ship on the ocean going in one direction, right? Now we have a ship that's almost all the way full with water. And a whole bunch of people are just trying to bail water out just to keep it just barely above the crest. And that's what we're doing. That's where we are right now. And we have someone at the top say, hey, don't worry about it. I know that you're wet and you're bailing out water. Don't worry about it. We'll be just fine. And here comes a wave. That wave is another bubble, right? And once that wave hits, the whole thing's going to go under. This is what's going to happen, everyone. And while we're arguing with each other about these stupid little economic numbers, it doesn't matter at this point. It really doesn't matter because there's nothing that's going to be able to bail us out. Even if we have Bernie Sanders, right? That would actually be a wave on top of a wave. It doesn't matter who we get in office. I honestly believe that we should have had Rand Paul in office. He's a fiscally conservative person. He was my first choice. And he just got buried because people just weren't ready, right, for that. And the fact of the matter is that John F. Kennedy had the same type of feelings that Rand Paul had. And I'm surprised that more Democrats didn't fall in line with Rand Paul because, you know, he did remind me of a John F. Kennedy. A lot of his policies were at least fiscal policies, and the exclusion and the repulsion of the secrecy, and wanting to make everything transparent and going back to a solid, sound money, gold standard, getting rid of the Federal Reserve and all this other type of bureaucratic nonsense that has completely destroyed this country. So moving on. This is from Forbes back in 2014, and it was a year after the centennial of the creation of the Federal Reserve. This was an interesting article, and I read the whole thing, but there was a few things that stuck out. The Fed, he notes, was not initially created to be a central bank. Central banks can create money, and the Fed was not supposed to do that under our constitutional gold standard. Timberlake explains it has to be a gold standard central bank. It was to be a gold standard central bank, and to do occasionally with what the gold standard did constantly. Provide seasonal money as needed, commiserate with seasonal spikes in production of commodities. That's perfectly reasonable. It was not created as a centralized manager of the monetary system with unlimited powers, as the legal tender cases has implied, but as a technical device to reduce occasional instabilities appearing in the commercial banking system. That is not what it did. The Federal Reserve just became a money making system. It just printed money, and that's what it's been doing since 1913, and it's only gotten worse. World War I gave the nation its first taste of the Fed's ability to create money with the rise in the price level of about 56% from 1917 to 1920. That, however, was just a prelude to the gyrations of the latter half of the 20s, i.e. the Great Depression. First, the Fed embraced the so-called real bills doctrine, RBD, that rationalized an expansion of the money supply on the basis of expanding production. Finally, he says the RBD, Timberlake writes, looks something like a gold standard, whereas gold is coined into money at a fixed price. Real bills, bank loans that reflect the production and marketing of goods and services. This all this is really saying is that the Congress and the Constitution only gives the power to Congress to coin money and to incrementally fluctuate the change of that money, or in grains of gold or grains of silver. It did not give the Congress the ability to just create money out of thin air. And that's what it's done. And that's exactly what it's done. And some say that has boosted the economy and it's created more trade. Sure, that's fine. But the inflation that it's caused, the increase of the budget deficit, as well as the debt and all that other type of stuff, is just sinking the ship even faster. Let's look at the coronavirus. Going on to happier topics, right? The coronavirus, there has been a total of 28,353 cases confirmed today. Total of 565 deaths. And that is just in mainland China. So 28,000 mainland China, 45 in Japan, 12 Germany, 12 U.S. It's 12 now in U.S., 5 Canada, 6. So it's really making its way across. Remember when we first looked at this, it was only just a few countries. Look at what's happened. Okay, I'm not prepared to say this is a pandemic yet, but I think that's something that they really need to start controlling. Some are saying they are actually showing a lot of progress in controlling this. That is yet to be seen. Mainland China is just simply exploding, while the rest of the world is just kind of here and there type of things, controlled pretty well for the most part. Mainland China is just exploding. And obviously, when I made the argument that if they do not control this, this could cause a black swan event, and it could cause an economic collapse through the interference with a lot of the trade and the closing of businesses and so forth. That could cause a cascade effect. So that's all I have for you today. Well, actually, in this video, I'm going to be doing some more videos throughout the day, but keep in mind though, when especially with the State of the Union and all this other stuff that's in the news, that's constantly bombarding you, please understand what it really is. It's all a distraction. Okay, we need to point the fingers at the real culprits. It's Congress. It's the Federal Reserve. It's the people that are so-called doing the supposed legwork and keeping this ship going. Stop blaming the president so much. The president can't really do as much as you think he can. Until next time, this is Joe with Simple Life Show. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.